let's get start a demo first of multi Docker container. Here I just create one application which is .NET Core API along with Postgres SQL database which is also running in Docker container. So here see, once I get, so it is just returning a data from that container which is also running in our Postgres SQL in our Docker container, like that, right? Also if I trying to execute, let me add more data on that. So let me execute again. So see, whatever new data I just added, so those are data over there, right? And same things, if you show you, I'll show you over here. See, all the container is running. For example, this is my Postgres SQL container over here. See, this is my Postgres SQL container, and here my API. So this is my teaching API, teacher API microservice actually, which is actually interact with this Postgres container, right? And also if I want to connect this Postgres SQL container using any IDE. So for example, see, this is one IDE which is called DB Viewer, right? So in this IDE, what I can do simply, if I just execute, so it is just returning the data. So that means whatever this DB actually running in our container, right? And we are trying to connect in this IDE, and then we are able to get the data as well, right? So those are things will be implement in this session, right? So let's get start implementation. So before implementation, I'm especially recommend to you, if you first time visit my channel .NET real world example, go to this channel, and before start you just have to check out my all the series videos. For example, I just create this one for that multi-container along with the SQL server. And then also we have just covered another session which is also persisting data, like how we can persisting data in our Docker container, right? Suppose we can't we can't lose our data, right? So also we have just created another session which is multi-container along with MySQL. So this session will cover multi-container along with .NET Core Web API along with PostgreSQL, right? So now let's get start implementation. So I will not take an old example, right? I will do the from scratch because we have done actually multi-container with SQL and MySQL as well. So I will not take that example because that is a very complex example. So what I will do, simply I'll just create a new application. For example, it is just .NET Core Web API. Next, so my project name would be PostgreSQL, right? And then choose that whatever location you want. I just put it this guy, and then next, and then remove that HTTPS, and that is fine. Then create. So like this way, you can just create your new solution with that API, .NET Core API. Now this is application has been created, right? It is simple web API. I'm not going to details on that architecture and structure and all, right? Because it is a I already covered many sessions, so I'm not going to that. So yeah, firstly what I need to do, simply I have to just add some configuration to related DB context and all. So first let me quickly add some DB context and all. For here, manage NuGet package, and just add an EF core. Let me look for an entity framework core, and just install this guy. Once this package is installed, now we have to record another package that is called, for example, uh, Postgres, right? So let me search was for this, and once you search, you have to require this guy because we have to interact our DB using this Postgres, right? Let me install this guy. Now this two package is sufficient for our implementation. So once it's done, what I will do, I simply create a data folder, and here I will just create our DB context class. Let me create a DB context class, for example, context, right? And once you create it, now I have to just inherit that DB context. Let me bring that namespace. So yeah, let me use that DB context and quickly create a constructor over there. And here what I have to do, that I have to simply add that db context options, and we have to configure our ef core stuff using that db context. So this like that, and create options and use that base controller and use that options. That's it. Let me remove extra line over there, right? Yeah. So now our db context has been created over here. Let me quickly call that override method, and then on create event model. Yeah, this guy by default model. So that is also fine. Now we required one entity. So let me quickly create another entity as well. Create new folder, call entity, and here I'll just need to create a one entity of the teacher microservice. So I will just record a teacher entity. So teacher, and in this teacher what I need to do, I have to just pass few, I have to just record few property for this like that, their id, first name, last name, subject and address, right? This is for the example perspective, right? So once it's done, now I have to just create a one db set, go back to your db context class, and here I have to just create a one db set. So let me create quickly as a db set. So like that, public db set and teachers, and whatever teachers, let me set it. So our db context has been ready, right? Now go back to here in the project. Here actually now what I need to do in this db context, I have to use in our program.cs file. So let me go to that program.cs file. Here I have to just use that I have to just register actually the db context. So let me use that builder dot services dot add db context, and in this add db context you have to pass the type. What is the type of db context name? This is my db context name, and here let me bring that namespace. So here my namespace, and then inside use that delegate, create a lambda function, and use that c dot whatever data provider, right? So that you have to use. So I have to use an SQL, right? Postgres SQL, and here simply you have to pass your DB connection name over here, right? So let me add as of now where I will get that connection string. I will connection string from my app setting, right? So let me quickly store as a variable, for example, my SQL connection or my my Postgres connections, right? And here my Postgres connection, which will coming from here. Uh, our app setting dot all, right? So as of now I will not configure, because I see I required some configuration, right? So that's why I will do that app settings configuration and later, so that you can understand very well, right? So I will not do right now, but yeah, I just created, yeah, for this connection thing we will get from that app dot connection string, and then simply pass it to that connection string in this here. That's it. Now this is complete my configurations, right? And accept that app setting dot json file, right? And then one more thing actually we have to do that once our db context has been created, right? So we have to just create one extension method which will automatically, once your application run, so automatically will be migrate, right? So they are actually, we have to create a custom migration. So let me create a custom migration for that. For example, we have to create one extension method for that. So let me create that extension method quickly. Here call it to extension method, extension extension folder, right? And inside that I have to just create extension method. Let me create another class, create that start up that extension method, make it to static, right? Because we have to record that static, and then I have to do that, I have to just create another method, that extension method. Let me like that, right? So see, I just create a now create db if not exists, so that is just extension of that I host interface, right? And then here I have to just simply use I have to just create a scope first. So using that interface, I have to just create the scope, and after that scope, I have to require that service provider. So let me get that service provider using that scope, that service provider. Once it's done, now I will just use our connection is DB connection, DB uh, DB context, right? So like that, see whatever service I have to get that our DB context, and let me bring back that namespace. Let me add, yeah, teacher DB context. So yeah, so like that you have to just get that teacher DB context over here. And also one more things I have to add over here before moving further. So I require some logging. So for the logging perspective, what I will do, I will just get one more service, like using service dot get required service, using that iLogger, and create that logger instance so that I can logged in our sections in further, right? So like that. So once you are creating the DB context, right? So here what I need to do, simply try catch. Inside the try catch, I have to use some logic. So first what I will do, simply I will put one logging over here first, like okay, this logger dot log information. So this is that information perspective. And then what I need to do, I have to just create a one DB um, database creation, right? So database creator object, we have to create that database creator object, for example, like that. See, I just create a variable database create, and then we have to use that context dot database dot get service and get that IDB database creator, right? I just create an instance of that. And then what I will do further, I have to check on the database if it is connected or not. If it is connected or if it is not null, then further our implementation will do, right? So for example, like that. See, first I will check, like okay, whatever database creator is not null, then our implementation will be start. For example, first let me add one log, right? Okay, so enter the database creation. Okay, and then what I will do, simply I just check one check I have to record. If it is database creator is connected, it is not connected, then we have to forcefully tell, okay, let me create a one DB for that, right? So like that, actually this is a custom database creation while running your application. So I already explained everything, so I'm not going to details, but yeah, like that actually you can just achieve. So again, once a DB creation done, then what I will do, next section will be check, okay, is there any table creation is pending, right? So let me again just check, okay, hash table is there, right? So based on this, if it is not created, so let me create for this, right? So like that you also just do that. And then finally we have to add some seed data over here, right? Once your database created, table created, right, then we have to add some data, seeding data. So for that, what I can do, I have just to create a one seed method. Let me create quickly over here, create a class, and the class name would be, for example, this database initializing database seed data. And here I have to just make it that static. Let me create a static method, and then again I have to just create another static method of that DB context, and then use that guy, right? And here simply first I will check, okay, whatever teacher context, right? So teacher context, and let me bring that namespace first. And also there is some spelling mismatch, so that what I can do, simply teacher DB context, right? And then in this teacher DB context, first I will check, right? So if it is not exist, if it is have any value of the teacher DB context or teachers DB set, so you have as a value, so simply return back, nothing we have to do that. If does not have, what I will do, simply I have to just create some dummy data. For example, this is my dummy data, teacher 1, then teacher 2, like that. And like also let me create one more HR third. So this is seeding data, right? So once you're just creating the three dummy data, what you need to do, simply you have to add those data in our DB context, right? So let me add this guy and let me refresh. Let me replace that guy, our DB context, right? So see, just simply add whatever, just adding data in our DB context, and then finally save changes. So let me save change this guy, did dot save changes async. Let me without use that without async. So like that, actually we can just create our seed data seed data static class, use that guy, go back to our again startup.db context here, and once it's done, what you have to do, I have to just, after that conditions, I have to just use that initialize db and pass it to your uh, teacher context object, and that's it. Once it's done, let me add a logs over there. After that, okay, that that is creating successfully. So once it's done, what I need to do, simply nothing I have to do much over here, simply just add the exception over here and then log it to the exception, whatever logs exception we have. So like that, actually you just created that extension method, so that once your application will run, it will actually custom migration uh, class, so it will just fire and then it will update your db. So let me go back to program.cs file, and after that build section, see this is a build section, and before run, what I have to do, simply just call that guy, if this guy, see it's running, it is there, right? And then call it to write. So like that, this is a complete things we have done for db context, and once you start your application, so automatically will migrate. So these two things you have to take in care first. Once you're done, now comes in the picture our docker, right? So how we can use that multi-container, right? So also we have to use that Postgres SQL's database using that container. How we can achieve that thing? So what you need to do, simply right click on that project, you have to add you know container orchestrator support, right? So let me add this guy. Now see, it will asking to, okay, uh, whatever you want to docker compose, right? There's only one option, so let me add that. Once you add, so it will again asking, okay, what is the target operating system you want to use? So I want to use that linux, and okay. So once you add, it will actually it will add this project. See, this docker compose project is automatically added, and also adding the docker compose file, as well as if you see the project level, it is just adding a new docker file which have all that information which we actually record, like whatever project and how they are doing to copy and then publish and then running, right? So like they are auto configuration over here, right? And in this docker file, we have to actually, yeah, we have to modify something. So like for example, use 80 port only, right? Instead of 8080. So that is fine, that is one changes. And another changes, you have to do that in our docker compose file. If you open the docker compose file, we have to add our container over here. Like see, this is a one container, right? And this is a one container for our api, but yeah, our database, we have to create another container. So there's actually flexibility give us that docker compose file where you can just use your multiple container. So that's way actually you have to use. And then before modify in our docker compose file, what I will do, see, if you expand this guy, you are able to see another file. That is a docker compose override file. So what I need to do over here, simply just remove this http ports, right? And then use that 80, right? So that is fine, because we are not using that http ports, but yeah, we'll use that 80 without http, so that's why we have just changed to 80. So that is done, that changes we have to done, and then we have to start our container over here, we have to start create our Postgres SQL container. So how we can create, what is the syntax and all, right? So first of all, let me add that name of that container. So let me add, this is my name, right? So I just add a Postgres container, whatever you name, you just post it. But yeah, for the naming convention, I have to use this guy, and then I have to use that container name. What is that container name for that Postgres? So this is my Postgres container name would be Postgres container, right? And then what is the next? Now image, right? So we required actually Postgres image to run our database. So we require the image, right? So how we'll get that image? So that is important, right? So in, if you see my previous session where I just complete my SQL and MySQL, so there is a different image they have to use, but for Postgres they have to use that Postgres, right? And also use the latest. So how we can identify, okay, uh, how we can get that actually information? So if you open this official website of that, see, this is official website of dockerhub.com, and if you go to this section, Postgres section, so it will just give in this information. So this is your image name, right? This is a C, it is a clearly saying Docker official image name of Postgres. This is that image name. Also you're able to see here the name of that image, like this guy, right? So this is that image name, that is fine. But how we'll get, information, okay, when I have to use this guy or when I have to use other ones, right? So if you scroll down little bit over here, now see, this is that section. In this section they are giving, many tags. So whatever tags they actually mention, you can use those tags. Except these tags, you will, if you trying to use, definitely you will get that error. So these are tags you can use. But yeah, see, I just using this guy because we have the tags of latest, so I can use the latest. But yeah, if you want to your specific version, if you want, so you can just use it like that, right? So that's way actually I can use it, like Postgres my image name, and this is tag name. It is I will use that whatever latest version, so that I will use. So like that you have to use. And then I have to use the port, which port I have to try to run. So I have to run, the port number would be, this is actually that Postgres SQL, default port number is 545432. So also you can get this information, that official website. If you go here and go to that, uh, if you go to that, this guy, just click this guy, and if you scroll down, now see, you will get that information over here as well, 5432, like that, right? So this way actually you can just identify, okay, and this is my Postgres container, this is our Docker container port number, and this is my application port number, right? So like that actually you can use it. And once it's done, now another section would be required for this guy, environment. So what is the environment? Just set up whatever, your password of that PostgreSQL, right? So this is my password I just set. And then also we set that whatever username, so this would be my username, and you can just change it, the password, username, and also the db, whatever db you want. So you can just mention over here, or you can change it over here. So I just mention over here the db name, username, and password, like that. So once it's done this setup, we require, one more things, like which we have done already. So we have to persist this data. So see, if you only running using this setting, so your data will not persist. So I already covered this persisting data in the Docker container, but yeah, you can check out my old session. So here what I need to do, I need to using that volume. So volumes actually, if you define the volumes like that, right? So in this volume, if you specify a specific path, so the data will be stored in this path always. Once you remove your container, once you remove your, images and all, but still they will keep your data persist in these locations, right, in your machines. So this is one setting, and another setting also required, that network, because see, the multi-container we have to run in the same network. So what I can do, I have to just create one network. So let me create a one network over here on the top. So this is a default bridge network I have just created over here, and the network I have to use over here for that, all the container which will we have to run, right? So let me add these things also. So this is also done. One last thing I have to done over here, uh, so the health check, right? Suppose this container trying to run, but we don't know, right? So it is properly running or not. So there is a one mechanism also, we can check actually health check. So let me add that health check as well, so that whilst while trying to run this container, so we have to get, okay, this is perfectly fine. And then whatever dependent service they are taking, like for example this api taking dependent on this PostgreSQL, right? The database. So till running this completely of that our database, this container should not run. So this is another actually benefit for this checking the health check. So that's why we are adding over here. So that is done, right? So this is completely done, this setting for that uh, container of that Postgres, right? So this is done. Now we have to just modify little things over here for this guy. So let me add container name, which is also missing here. By default they are not adding container name, so I will just add the container name, that is called a teacher microservice container. And one more thing actually we have to add, like, see, we don't have any port and all, right? So let me add some port. For example, let me add something 8010, right? And then by default, container port is 80, but yeah, our application port is 8010. And then also this service is dependent on that guy, right? So that also we have to do that over here using the dependent on settings. So like, let me use this guy, right? Dependent on, what is my dependent on? This service, right? This container. Where is my container? This container is dependent on here. And then also we have to add, okay, that one condition, right? So this is condition, okay, service that healthy. What that means of that? It means this container, if it is healthy, then it will run, right? Without that, it should not be run, right? So that's why we put some conditions. And one last thing, we have to add that network. So let me add that network, so that every container should be run on the same network, right? So this is network also done over here. So that's it. Now our Docker compose file has been ready. Now we are starting to run. But before run, what I will do actually, whatever DB connection we have to prepare, right? So that we have to configure in our application.json file, right? So that actually I just completed in program.cs file, right? So whatever connection we are getting, we can just adding over here and just run. But this connection string we have to set up. So what is that connection string? Go to that string over here, and here let me add connection strings, right? And then here we have to add that connection string name and settings. And what is that name? Let me add this guy. And here we have to add the settings. So what is the setting and all, that is important. That's why I just have not complete that, right? So first I have to just add host, right? What is my host? So this is my host, and where I will get that host name, go to the Docker compose file. This the container name is your host name, right? So go to here, mention here the container name. This is one. Now second is the database. What is your database? Let me add the database, whatever you just trying to use, right? So whatever database you want, you can just create it over here and just mention here, right? So this is your database. Second things, now also you have to mention that port, whatever the port, it is 5432, right? This is a default port. And then we have to add another things for the username. What is the username and where you will get that username? Go back again the Docker Compose file. You will get that username from here, which already we have mentioned. Let me add this guy. And then one last thing is the password, right? So what is my password? Let me first add that password property and go back to here. This is my password, right? So copy this guy and just add it over here. So this is done, right? So like that, host, database, port, username, and password. So you can just add this information and we are good to go, right? So what I need to do, simply first I will check, first I will just rebuild the solutions so that we can make sure, okay, everything is looks good. Okay, now build succeed, right? Now go to your Docker container. First I just remove everything whatever we have, right? Let me delete all that. Let me delete all that, and also let me remove all the images except that image, because they will take on some time, right? Let me delete, let me delete all image, right? So now we don't have any image, we don't have any image. Also let me delete that volumes as well, right? Now I have just cleaned everything, that volume, container, and image and everything. Now what I will do, simply I will just run first, using that Docker Compose startup file, right? But later on I will use that command line as well. But yeah, first I will show you how actually working in this Docker Compose file. So let me run this. If you're doing first time, so definitely it will take some time actually to download that image, because that database image taking some time. So that's why it's trying to download. Container is running perfectly, right? There is a green tick as well. And also see, everything is running perfectly. If you click this guy, you're able to see the logs. So all actually see db has been created, right? So these are that we have just created our tables and all, db migration that is created. Also if you see the database also, that is running perfectly, right? If I want to check, if you just open that our Docker desktop first, now see the two images that has been created. This is my Postgres images, right? And that is my uh, API container, right? So this is my API content, API images. And if you go to that container, so see, this is the two container. One is that, our Postgres database container. This is up and running. There is no issue. And if you go back to our API container, so see, if you see the logs, so this will just checking and then it is just creating a table and then seeding the data, everything just inserting and then running this application. And let me run this application and see how it look like, right? So let me run this application. What is my port number? Let me check that guy first. We adding the port number is, yeah, 8010. So let me open anywhere. So see, let me add this guy 8010 and then refresh. Now see, our application is running, there is no issue. But yeah, we have to just implement, that controllers to interact our db context. We have do nothing over here, right? So that will do, that is a pending. But yeah, before that, what I will do, I will try to connect the db using that whatever idm do you have. If you have Postgres idm, that is fine. But yeah, I just using this IDM, that is also, good, nice IDM, which is actually allowed to all that data source actually to connect. So that's why I'm using this guy db behavior, right? You can use also this guy. So let me try to connect and see, use that, Postgres next. And now what you need to do in this host, see, host, you have to just set localhost, database is the name is the Postgres, the local host is localhost, and database, whatever database you want, you can just add it. But also just make sure show all database, so that whatever database has been created you can able to see. And the username also see here, Postgres, that is also I just created. And then finally we have to add that password. So what is my password? Go back to your here, and this is my password, right? So let me copy this guy and add this guy, add the password. Okay, and then try to just connect. So if you first time doing, definitely some dependency whatever, they will just try to add a download. If you download, so then see it is clearly saying it is connected, right? And once I okay and then finish, you're able to see your database over here, and this is teacher db which has been created. And just go to that any editor over here and just try your database. So table name, right? Where is table? If you go to the schema and tables, here the tables. So let me drag and drop here star from teachers, right? And then just execute this guy. So once you execute, see whatever seed data we have there, right? And then I will do one more thing. Suppose for example, let me stop that container, for example our database container, right? So let me stop that. Once I stop, if I try to execute again, now see I'm getting error. So that means in our container is running and we are successfully connect our IDM from our container, right? So that's why actually I just showing you. And let me run one more time and see it is connected or not. Yeah, it is connected. Okay, so now go to the further implementation. Everything looks good. Now what I will do, let me stop that, right? And what I will do, I have to just simply adding two endpoints so that I can get and add our teacher's information. So let me create a controller, go to that API, create an empty API, add this guy, and let me add the teacher's controller, teacher controllers. And simply I have to just create a constructor. I have to just inject our db context over here, like whatever the db context I have, teacher db context, and then create instance and initialize the constructor so that I can use it. Now see, now I'm good to use that db context, right? And then I have to just create two endpoint. First is that get endpoints, right? So I have to just create a one get endpoint which will return all the teachers information. So let me change the spelling mistakes over here, so like that. And also that bring back that namespace, right? So see I just getting that information of the teachers and just showing in over here that endpoints. And then another endpoints would be adding the teachers new teachers, right? So what I can do, simply just create a new endpoint, a post endpoint which will accept teachers entity, right? And then we just add using the add async add that entity and save asyncs, and then finally return that result. So simple, it is just simple endpoint, right? And let me run one more time. Now it's running, right? And let me check execute. Now see, we have that same data, right? And then what I will do, I just have to add few more data. For example, John and Peter, and subject would be English, and address would be UK, right? And once I execute, right, and let me change one more, like Lamson and Peter, and then also is Spanish, right? And then it is USA. Execute. So once you execute two and then again execute, now see you are able to successfully get those data which just recently added in our container db, right? So also we can verify over here from the database. Let me execute. Now see we are able to get those informations right over here. And one more things we have to check, like is it is persisting or not, right? So let me stop that and go to here and container. let me remove that container, and we have to verify, okay, it is persist or not, right? Database is if I remove container, so data is persist or not. Let me run one more time, and if you see all the container is trying to running, but it is waiting because it should be first healthy, then it should be run. So once you run, now see it is running, and just check whatever we have just adding the old data, that is persist or not. Now see, we have added this two data, right? John and Lemson. So that is persist, and also we can check it in the database level. So that also will be there, right? So that persisting also is working, and the container multi-container also is working. Everything is working. Now one thing I have to test, this is just running, we are running directly, using that docker compose uh, startup file, right? But instead of this, what I will do, I'll show you how we can run in the command line as well. So go to that solution folder. Okay, so this is your solution folder where your docker compose file is there, right? So in this path, what I will do, go to that command prompt, and in this command prompt I have to use one command. Before that, use that command, what I will do, simply again I just remove all that old container, right? Old container as well as that all image as well. So remove that image. Before that, first we have to remove container, and then we have to remove that image. I will not remove that Postgres image because it will take again many times to download, so I will not do that. But yeah, except this guy, I just remove everything. And then here I have to use one command. Let me zoom in for you little bit so that you can see that. Okay, so docker, then compose, and here up, and then deattach, and then hit enter. So see, it will just trying to create that pulling that images and all, and just created that image if it is not exist. So once this image is uh, found, and just install, it will just running, actually download, and then it will create a container inside that image. Now see, it is waiting. See, this container, Postgres container is waiting because it is taking some time. So that's why it's waiting. And once it's waiting done, see, it is saying it is healthy, and then your second whatever dependent container it's running. So that's why we have to use. So now it is running perfectly. If you see over here, both our container is running. If you go to here, see, everything is just, if we have already have a database, so it should not be created, it is just created, right? And also our this guy, see, not this guy, Postgres one, right? This is also running. And if I run our application, it looks good, right? It is running in our this port 810. And then if I try to get the data, now see, whatever previously we just using the data, still the data is persist over here, right? That is the beauty of that here. And then it's good to go. And also if I try to add more data, so now I am able to get adding also data inside this container. So that is also done, right? So everything actually we have covered over here. Many things we have done using that command line. Also we have done, like, okay, how we can run that command line, and also how we can just dependent service, actually we have to wait till our service is not running properly, right? It is not healthy, then it should not run. So like that, actually we have to cover many things. So that's all for here. But yeah, before closing this session, what I will do, simply I have to just add this repository so that you can just use it for your learning perspective. So let me add that. You can just find our GitHub link, like multi-container with Postgres, right? And this is my GitHub link name. Okay, make it public, right? So that you can use it, and then create and push. So now you're able to get this repository also in my GitHub link, right? So that's all for this session, right? Have a nice day, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and share.